I stood in the bridal shop, tears streaming down my face as my stepmother Diane shook her head dismissively. White is completely inappropriate for you, Ashley. You're not exactly traditional bride material. The sales associate looked confused. But ma'am, it's her wedding dress. Exactly why she needs something more suitable, Diane interrupted, pulling a beige dress from the rack. This is much more appropriate for someone in her situation. My situation? Code for the daughter who never measured up to her precious biological children. My fiancé Blake squeezed my hand supportively, but Diane's glare silenced him. She'd been controlling every aspect of our wedding for months, claiming Dad's money meant she had final say on everything. White is for pure, innocent brides, she continued loudly enough for other customers to hear. Some people need to be more realistic about their choices. I bit my tongue watching her select the ugliest dress in the store. But inside, something hard and calculating was forming. She wanted to humiliate me? Fine. Two could play that game. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now and join the journey. Growing up, I'd always been the afterthought in our blended family. When Dad married Diane 12 years ago, she brought her twin daughters Kimberly and Kaylee, who were immediately treated like princesses while I became the family servant. Ashley, help your sisters with their homework, became Diane's daily refrain. Ashley, drive the twins to practice. Ashley, babysit while we take the girls shopping. The twins were cheerleaders, honor students, and Dad's pride and joy. I was the quiet stepdaughter who did chores and stayed invisible. When Kimberly got engaged last year, Diane threw her a $50,000 wedding that made magazine covers. Now it was my turn, and suddenly the family budget was tight. My dress allowance was 1/10 of Kimberly's. My venue choices were too extravagant. My guest list was unreasonable. But the white dress prohibition was the final straw. Diane claimed it was about family values and appropriate choices, but I knew the truth. She wanted me diminished, embarrassed, less than her precious daughters. What she didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything for months. Every decision became a battle. I wanted garden roses. Diane insisted on cheaper carnations. I chose elegant invitations. She changed them to generic cards without telling me. I planned a string quartet. She hired her friend's amateur band. This is what your budget allows, she'd say coldly when I protested. Maybe if you'd been more responsible with money like the twins. The twins. Everything came back to them. Kimberly's wedding photos dominated our living room while my engagement pictures sat in a drawer. Kaylee's college acceptance letters covered the refrigerator, while my graduate degree hung forgotten in my bedroom. Blake grew increasingly frustrated watching Diane steamroll our wedding plans. She's treating you like hired help instead of the bride, he said after another humiliating planning session. I know, I replied, organizing the folder of evidence I'd been secretly collecting. But her behavior is revealing her true nature. Everyone will see it soon. He looked puzzled by my calm response. He didn't know about the recordings, the screenshots, the financial documents I'd been gathering. Justice required patience and preparation. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now and join the journey. While Diane played wedding dictator, I played detective. Every controlling text message, every dismissive comment, every financial manipulation. I documented it all with careful precision. The smoking gun came when I found her real wedding budget spreadsheet on Dad's computer. She'd allocated $50,000 for my wedding, the same amount as Kimberly's, but was pocketing $35,000 for her own vacation fund. The receipts told the story. Fake vendor quotes inflated by thousands, kickbacks from suppliers, and charges for services we'd never receive. She was literally stealing from my wedding fund while telling me we couldn't afford basic decorations. But the most damaging discovery was her group chat with the twins. Screenshots showed months of mockery about my pathetic wedding, jokes about my delusions of grandeur, and detailed plans to upstage me at my own ceremony. Mom should wear the white dress instead, Kimberly had texted. At least she deserves it. Ashley will look so stupid in beige, Kaylee replied with laughing emojis. They had no idea I'd hacked into Kimberly's old phone, still logged into the family iCloud account. 2 weeks before the wedding, Diane announced her outfit choice at family dinner. I found the most beautiful dress for Ashley's special day, she said, showing photos on her phone. My blood ran cold. She was wearing white. Pure, elegant, stunning white that made her look like the bride instead of the mother figure. Isn't it gorgeous? She asked, fishing for compliments from Dad and the twins. You look amazing, Mom, Kimberly gushed. Like a queen. Much more bridal than Ashley's beige thing, Kaylee added with a smirk. Dad said nothing, avoiding my eyes. He knew this was wrong but wouldn't challenge his wife. He'd chosen peace over protecting his daughter years ago. White to your stepdaughter's wedding? Blake asked carefully. Isn't that considered inappropriate? Diane's smile turned icy. I'm wearing white because I'm sophisticated enough to carry it off. Some people earn the right to beautiful things. That night I finalized my revenge plan. She wanted to play dress-up games? Perfect. I had a surprise that would stop the entire wedding cold. My salvation came from an unexpected source. Blake's mother, Patricia. Unlike my family, she'd been horrified by Diane's wedding hijacking and budget manipulation. This isn't right, Ashley, Patricia told me during a private lunch. A mother should be supporting her daughter, not sabotaging her happiness. When I showed her the evidence I'd collected, the stolen budget, the mocking text messages, the white dress photos, Patricia's expression hardened with determination. We're going to fix this, she said firmly. Blake's father has connections in the fashion industry. Let's get you a real wedding dress. Within days, Patricia had arranged for a designer friend to create my dream dress. Vintage-inspired lace, cathedral train, and the purest white silk imaginable. It was everything Diane had tried to deny me, plus modifications that would make my revelation impossible to ignore. What about your stepmother's reaction? Patricia asked as we planned the surprise. She's about to learn that some people fight back, I replied, thinking about the evidence folder hidden in my closet. The week before the wedding, Diane ramped up her control tactics. She changed the music without permission, rearranged the seating chart to put herself at the head table, and accidentally ordered the wrong flowers to save money. Everything looks perfect, she told Dad after making the unauthorized changes. Much better than Ashley's juvenile ideas. I smiled and nodded, pretending to accept her sabotage while secretly communicating with Patricia and Blake about our real plans. The vendors Diane thought she'd manipulated were actually working with us to restore my original vision. Why are you so calm? Kimberly asked suspiciously. Usually you're crying by now when Mom makes changes. I've learned to appreciate her wisdom, I replied diplomatically, checking my phone for updates from Patricia. The twins exchanged confused glances. They were used to me being upset and powerless, not serene and confident. My new attitude worried them, but they couldn't figure out why. If they'd been paying attention, they might have noticed I'd been recording our conversations for weeks. The night before my wedding, Diane orchestrated a rehearsal dinner designed to humiliate me in front of our extended family. She'd prepared a speech comparing me unfavorably to the twins while highlighting her own sacrifices as a stepmother. Ashley has been such a challenge, she told our guests, dabbing fake tears with a tissue. But we've tried to guide her toward appropriate choices despite her difficulties. My difficulties? Like getting a master's degree, maintaining a successful career, and finding a loving partner who saw through my family's dysfunction. It's been hard watching her struggle with realistic expectations, Diane continued. Kimberly and Kaylee set such high standards that poor Ashley sometimes gets confused about her place. The room shifted uncomfortably as relatives realized they were witnessing emotional abuse disguised as motherly concern. Blake's family looked shocked, while my father stared at his plate in shame. But tomorrow she'll finally have the wedding that suits her, Diane concluded with a patronizing smile. I stood up slowly, my wine glass in hand. Thank you, Diane. Tomorrow will definitely be memorable. Something in my tone made her smile falter. Wedding morning arrived with chaos. Diane bustled around the house in her white gown, directing preparations like a general commanding troops. She'd hired a photographer to capture her getting ready, positioning herself as the star of the day. "Where's Ashley?" the photographer asked, confused about why the stepmother was being featured instead of the bride. "Getting ready elsewhere," Diane replied dismissively. "I'm handling the important shots today." Meanwhile, I was at Patricia's house with my real bridal party, Blake's sisters and my college friends who'd watched Diane's manipulation for years. They helped me into my secret wedding dress, while I reviewed my evidence presentation one final time. "Are you sure about this?" asked my maid of honor, Emma. "Once you do this, there's no going back." "There was no going back the moment she tried to steal my wedding," I replied, adjusting my cathedral train. "Today, everyone learns who Diane really is." My phone buzzed with increasingly frantic texts from Diane demanding to know where I was. I turned it off and focused on the task ahead. Justice was about to be served on a silver platter. I arrived at the church through a side entrance, avoiding the main doors where Diane was greeting guests and accepting compliments on her white gown. From my hiding spot, I could hear her redirecting attention to herself. "Ashley will be along shortly," she told arriving relatives. "I wanted to welcome everyone personally, since this is such a special day for our family." Our family. She'd never considered me family until it was convenient for her narrative. Blake found me in the bride's room, his eyes widening when he saw my real dress. "Ashley, you look incredible. But what about Diane's tantrum when she sees me in white?" I finished. "Let her rage. Everyone will understand why once I'm finished." Patricia arrived with the final piece of my plan, a wireless microphone system connected to the church's speakers. Whatever I said during the ceremony would be heard by every guest in attendance. "The technical team is ready," she whispered. "Your slideshow is loaded, and the evidence files are prepared for display." I checked my reflection one final time. The beige dress Diane had forced me to buy hung and used in my closet. Today I was wearing white and everyone would know why I'd earned that right. The music started, and my bridesmaids began their walk down the aisle. From my position behind the doors, I could hear gasps as guests realized someone else was wearing white. Diane, seated prominently in the front row, basking in attention meant for the bride. "Is that the mother of the bride in white?" I heard someone whisper. "I think it's the stepmother," came the confused reply. "But where's Ashley?" Blake's groomsmen exchanged knowing glances as they took their positions. Unlike my family, they'd been briefed on what was coming and stood ready to support the plan. The twins smirked from their seats, anticipating my humiliation when I appeared in the beige dress. Diane adjusted her white gown and checked her lipstick, preparing for what she thought would be her moment of triumph. Dad fidgeted nervously, perhaps sensing that something wasn't right. He'd learned to recognize the signs of impending family drama, though he'd never learned to prevent it. The wedding march began, and I stepped into view wearing pure, brilliant white that outshone everything else in the church. The church fell silent as I appeared in the doorway. My dress was everything Diane had tried to deny me: elegant, sophisticated, and undeniably bridal. The cathedral train flowed behind me like liquid silk, and my veil caught the light streaming through stained glass windows. Diane's face went white to match her inappropriate outfit. She half rose from her seat, mouth open in shock and fury. The twins stared in disbelief, their smug expressions replaced by confusion and growing panic. "She's wearing white," someone whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "She looks beautiful," came another voice. I walked slowly down the aisle, maintaining eye contact with each family member who dismissed me over the years. My expression was serene, confident, and completely in control. Everything they'd tried to prevent me from becoming. Blake beamed at the altar, pride radiating from every inch of his being. Behind him, his groomsmen stood at attention like an honor guard protecting their friend's happiness. Halfway down the aisle, I stopped walking and turned to face the congregation. The wireless microphone Patricia had provided was hidden beneath my bouquet, ready to broadcast my words to every corner of the church. "Before we continue," I announced clearly, "there's something everyone needs to know." The church fell completely silent as I stood in the center aisle, every eye focused on my words. Diane sat frozen in her white dress, her face cycling through shock, anger, and growing dread. "Many of you have wondered about my relationship with my stepfamily," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the sanctuary. Today, I want to share the truth about what this wedding has really been like. Ashley, sit down, Diane hissed from the front row, but I ignored her completely. 12 years ago, my father married a woman who promised to love me like her own daughter. Instead, I became the family servant while her biological children received every advantage, every opportunity, and every ounce of affection. Murmurs rippled through the congregation as relatives began connecting dots they'd previously ignored. The twins slouched in their seats, suddenly understanding that their reign as untouchable princesses was ending. This wedding was supposed to be my one day to feel special. Instead, it became another opportunity for Diane to show me my place in her hierarchy. I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the church's display system that Patricia had arranged. Let me show you what really happened during our wedding planning. The first image appeared on screens throughout the church. Diane's budget spreadsheet showing $50,000 allocated for my wedding, but only $15,000 actually spent. Gasps echoed through the sanctuary as guests realized the scope of the financial deception. This is what she told my father the wedding would cost, I explained calmly. This is what she actually spent. The difference went into her personal vacation fund. Diane tried to stand, but Dad pulled her back down, his face red with embarrassment and growing anger. The twins looked around desperately, realizing their family's carefully maintained image was crumbling in real time. The next slides showed the fake vendor quotes, inflated by thousands of dollars to justify the higher budget while pocketing the difference. Then came the group chat screenshots between Diane and the twins, their mocking comments about my pathetic wedding displayed for everyone to read. Ashley will look so stupid in beige. I read aloud from Kaylee's message. At least Mom deserves to wear white. The congregation shifted uncomfortably as they witnessed the casual cruelty my family had hidden for years. Relatives who dismissed my concerns now saw undeniable proof of systematic emotional abuse. But the most telling evidence, I continued, is what happened just this morning. The last image showed Diane at our house that morning, posing for professional photos in her white gown while directing the photographer to capture her getting ready shots. She'd literally tried to position herself as the bride of my own wedding. These photos were taken 2 hours ago at my father's house, I announced. While I was getting ready elsewhere, my stepmother was staging her own bridal photo shoot, wearing white to upstage me at my own ceremony. The church erupted in shocked whispers. Several elderly relatives shook their heads in disgust, while Blake's family looked on with supportive determination. This was exactly the vindication they'd hoped to see. For 12 years, I've been told I'm not good enough, not special enough, not worthy of the same treatment as her biological daughters. Today, I want everyone to see who really lacks character in this situation. Diane finally found her voice. This is ridiculous, she shouted, standing up in her white dress. Ashley is being dramatic and ungrateful. After everything we've done for her. Everything you've done to me, I corrected firmly. But thank you for proving my point by wearing white to my wedding. The contrast was perfect. Diane standing in inappropriate white, shouting and losing control, while I remained calm and dignified in my rightful bridal gown. Dad finally spoke, his voice shaking with emotion. Diane, is this true? Did you steal money from Ashley's wedding fund? It's not stealing. Diane protested desperately. I was managing the budget responsibly. Ashley has unrealistic expectations. You took $35,000 that was meant for our daughter's wedding, Dad said, his voice rising. You humiliated her in dress shops, sabotaged her planning, and wore white to her ceremony. How is any of that responsible? The twins tried to defend their mother. Ashley's being dramatic, Kimberly called out. She's always been jealous of our family. Your family, I replied, clicking to another slide that showed their college expenses, their car payments, their credit card bills, all paid by my father while I worked 2 jobs to support myself. This shows exactly whose family it really is. Blake's father stood up from his seat. I think we've heard enough character assassination for one wedding. Ashley, would you like to continue with your ceremony? Or would you prefer to handle this family business privately? I looked at Blake, who nodded encouragingly. We'd planned for this moment, knowing that exposure was just the first step toward healing. I'd like to continue, I said firmly. But first, I have something to say to my father. I turned to face Dad, who sat looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. For 12 years he'd chosen peace over protection, enabling Diane's cruelty rather than defending his own daughter. Dad, you have a choice to make today, I said clearly, my voice carrying to every corner of the church. You can continue pretending. Ashley, He started, then stopped, looking between me and Diane's furious face. I'm not asking you to choose between your wife and your daughter, I continued. I'm asking you to choose between right and wrong, between the woman who's been stealing from your daughter's wedding fund, or the daughter who's never asked you for anything except basic respect. The church was dead silent as everyone waited for his response. Diane stared at him desperately, the twins watching their world potentially collapse, while I stood in my white dress representing everything they tried to deny me. Diane, Dad said slowly, standing up, we need to talk. Privately. Now. We're not leaving this church, Diane snapped. Ashley is being manipulative and... We're leaving now, Dad shouted, his voice echoing off the stone walls. Before you embarrass our family any further. What happened next was like watching dominoes fall. Dad grabbed Diane's arm and marched her up the aisle, her white dress trailing behind her in a twisted parody of a bridal exit. She protested loudly, claiming I was lying and manipulating everyone. The twins followed reluctantly, Kimberly shooting me a look of pure hatred while Kaylee tried to blend into the background. Their perfectly curated world of privilege and superiority was crashing down around them. This isn't over, Ashley. Diane called out from the church doorway. You'll regret this. I already regret waiting so long to tell the truth, I replied calmly, earning a round of applause from Blake's side of the family. As the church doors closed behind them, the atmosphere immediately lightened. Guests began talking excitedly about what they'd witnessed, many expressing shame for not speaking up about Diane's behavior sooner. I always thought something was off about how she treated you, my great-aunt whispered as she passed my pew. I'm sorry we didn't see it clearly before. Blake appeared beside me, taking my hand. Are you ready to get married now? He asked with a smile. Without the toxic audience? I squeezed his fingers, feeling lighter than I had in years. I've been ready my whole life. With the drama cleared away, our wedding transformed into everything I'd dreamed it would be. The guests who remained were people who genuinely loved and supported us, creating an atmosphere of pure joy instead of tension and manipulation. Blake's father officiated the ceremony, speaking about love, respect, and building families based on choice rather than obligation. His words felt especially meaningful after the contrast we'd just witnessed. Ashley and Blake, you've both learned that family isn't just about blood relations, he said. It's about the people who choose to support your happiness, celebrate your successes, and stand by you during difficult times. When we exchanged vows, I spoke directly from my heart about finding someone who valued me for who I was, not who others thought I should be. Blake promised to always protect our relationship from people who tried to diminish our joy. The kiss was perfect. No photographers staging shots for someone else's agenda, no stepmother positioning herself in the background. Just two people beginning their life together surrounded by genuine love. As we walked back up the aisle, I felt a freedom I'd never experienced. The white dress felt like armor, my confidence like a shield against anyone who tried to make me feel small again. Our reception venue had been transformed by Patricia and Blake's sisters while we were at the church. All of Diane's cheap decorations had been replaced with my original vision. Garden roses, elegant linens, and the string quartet I'd wanted from the beginning. How did you manage this? I asked Patricia in amazement. Your father gave me his credit card and told me to fix everything Diane ruined, she replied with satisfaction. Apparently, your little presentation was quite enlightening for him. The vendors who'd been pressured to provide substandard service for inflated prices were eager to make amends. The photographer captured genuine moments instead of staged performances, and the caterer served the menu I'd originally chosen instead of Diane's budget alternatives. Most importantly, the guest list now consisted entirely of people who wanted to celebrate our happiness. Without the twins' drama and Diane's attention-seeking, conversation flowed naturally around tables filled with laughter and genuine joy. This is what weddings are supposed to feel like. Blake said during our first dance. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I'm proud of us for not letting them steal our day, I replied, spinning in my beautiful white dress. As the evening progressed, my phone buzzed with messages from family members who'd witnessed the church confrontation. Most were supportive, expressing regret for not speaking up about Diane's behavior sooner. Ashley, I owe you an apology, texted my uncle. We all saw how she treated you, but didn't want to cause family drama. Today showed us that the drama was already there. We just ignored it. Even some of Dad's relatives reached out with stories of their own concerning interactions with Diane over the years. Apparently, my experience wasn't isolated. She'd been manipulating family dynamics and creating division wherever she could establish control. The most surprising message came from my cousin Bailey, who'd always seemed to side with the twins. I'm sorry I didn't defend you. Diane told us you were jealous and dramatic, but today proved she was the problem all along. Blake's family group chat was celebrating our victory. She handled that like a boss, his sister texted. That evidence presentation was legendary. But the most important call came near midnight, just as we were preparing to leave for our honeymoon. Dad, calling to apologize and explain what had happened after they left the church. Ashley, I need to tell you what happened today, Dad said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and shame. After we left the church, Diane and I had the biggest fight of our marriage. He explained how the car ride became a screaming match, with Diane trying to justify her actions while he finally saw the full scope of her manipulation. The twins had attempted to defend their mother, but the evidence I'd presented was undeniable. She admitted to taking the money, Dad continued. She said she deserved it for putting up with you all these years. Then she claimed wearing white was her right as the real mother of the family. The conversation had escalated until Diane issued an ultimatum. Choose between her and me. For the first time in 12 years, Dad made the right choice. I told her that any woman who would steal from her stepdaughter's wedding and then humiliate her in church isn't someone I want to be married to, he said quietly. She packed a bag and left. The twins went with her. He paused, then added, I'm sorry, Ashley. I should have protected you years ago instead of enabling her behavior. I was a coward, and you paid the price. What happens now? I asked, processing this dramatic turn of events. Now I try to make amends for 12 years of failure as a father. Our honeymoon was everything a wedding trip should be. Relaxing, romantic, and completely free from family drama. Blake and I spent 2 weeks in Italy, exploring ancient cities and dreaming about our future without toxic influences. When we returned, the family landscape had completely changed. Dad had filed for divorce and was working with lawyers to recover the stolen wedding funds. Diane had moved in with Kimberly, while Kaylee was staying with friends, all of them struggling to maintain their lifestyle without Dad's financial support. I found more evidence while cleaning out Diane's office, Dad told us during our first post-honeymoon dinner. She's been manipulating our finances for years, not just the wedding fund. The twins had been cut off from their credit cards, car payments, and college funding. Suddenly forced to support themselves, they were discovering how difficult life could be without someone else paying for everything. Kimberly called me crying yesterday, Dad reported. Apparently, Diane can't afford to support both twins on her part-time income. They're asking to come home. What did you tell them? I asked. That our home has room for family members who treat each other with respect. If they want to be part of this family, they need to earn that privilege through their actions, not their genetics. 6 months after the wedding, tentative reconciliation efforts began. Kaylee reached out first, sending a text that simply said, I'm sorry. Can we talk? We met at a neutral coffee shop, where she broke down and admitted how toxic the family dynamic had become. Mom poisoned us against you from the beginning, she said through tears. She told us you were jealous and ungrateful, but you were just trying to survive in our house. Kimberly took longer to come around, still defensive about her mother's behavior. But when Diane's financial manipulation affected her personally, specifically, when college loans came due that she'd assumed Dad was paying, reality hit hard. I never realized how much Mom controlled the narrative, she admitted during a family therapy session Dad insisted on. We thought you were the problem because that's what she told us to think. Dad was working hard to rebuild our relationship, attending counseling and making concrete changes to show his commitment. He'd established a trust fund to ensure my future inheritance couldn't be touched by anyone else, and he consistently chose my needs over the twins' wants. "I lost 12 years of being a real father to you," he said during one particularly emotional session. "I can't get that time back, but I can make sure the next 12 years are different." Today, a year after my wedding, I look back on that day as the moment my real life began. Not just my marriage to Blake, but my liberation from a family system designed to keep me small and grateful for scraps. The white dress I wore became a symbol of more than bridal tradition. It represented my right to take up space, demand respect, and refuse to be diminished by people who never should have had power over my self-worth. Diane never apologized or acknowledged her wrongdoing. She occasionally sends manipulative messages through mutual friends, painting herself as the victim of an ungrateful stepdaughter. But her narrative falls flat when people remember the evidence I presented and the scene she created in church. The twins and I have rebuilt a cautious relationship based on honesty rather than hierarchy. They're learning to support themselves and make their own choices, while I'm learning to set boundaries that protect my peace. Dad and I are slowly healing, with professional help and genuine commitment to change. He's become the father he should have been years ago, but I'm no longer the daughter who desperately needed his approval to feel worthy. Blake and I are building our own family traditions, based on mutual respect and authentic love. Our home is a place where people's worth isn't determined by their usefulness, or their willingness to stay quiet about mistreatment. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to accept less than you deserve. The white dress was just the beginning. I finally learned that I was worth celebrating, and no one could ever convince me otherwise again. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.